Hi, class. I just wanted to say hello and to give you a little bit of a lesson on quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. As you're thinking about your research paper, I just want to give you some ideas on how to do more integration, have more choices on how to do it, and sort of how to think about things like what I call often sustained engagement with the text. So in order to do that, one thing I've been asking you to do for every paragraph in your research paper, I do want you to have concrete evidence to support your argument. So remember, every paragraph is going to have a topic sentence, which is an argument supporting your thesis, and then you're going to have concrete evidence that supports your topic sentence, and then you're going to explain how that evidence supports your argument. So one way that we've been kind of practicing doing that is quoting, but this week we also worked a bit on summarizing, and I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about paraphrasing as well. So this is a handout that is in your unit that you can look at. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I do want you to think about first, when should you quote, when should you paraphrase, and when should you summarize? So quoting is a really good way of bringing in evidence to your work. You especially works well when the language itself from the source is very thoughtful and useful, and you want to actually explore that language, whether it's literary or you just really like the way that the author phrases things. However, you can overquote. Sometimes, especially when you want a larger chunk from the text, it's better to put it in your own words. You want as much of your essay as possible to be your language, and you don't want to end up with an essay where it's just like a little bit of your writing, a big chunk of quote, a little bit of your writing, a big chunk of quote. You want it to be your own thoughts. So in a lot of cases, you might want to then paraphrase. And then the difference between paraphrasing and summarizing is that summarizing, you take a very large or a larger chunk of text and you just reduce it to the very basic points, right? Whereas with paraphrasing, you might simplify it a bit, but you also kind of keep more detail. So it's really just almost like translating it into your own language. And in that process of translating it, you often do some explaining of it too. And one thing I like to tell students is it's a great way to take notes on a text is to paraphrase, because then you have to understand it if you've put it in your own words, right? So just think about that as well. So this kind of goes over what I've said to you in a little bit more detail. And then one thing you want to think about is with a quote, with a paraphrase, or with a summary, you still have to cite it and integrate it into your text. So you don't just plop it in like we've been saying with quotes, you kind of introduce what it's about. And then you also say where you got it. So a summary, if it's an overview of the whole essay, you don't have to give page number, but if it's a summary of 1 or 2 pages, you might give the page number. A paraphrase, just like a quote, you have to give the page number where you got it or the source where you got it. So this gives you some tips on how to put others' words into your own words. When paraphrasing, one thing it says is you don't want to use paraphrasing software. If you look it up, it's out there, but it doesn't do a good job. So don't try to do that. Instead, you want to read the text carefully, be sure you understand it, put it aside, and then really put it in your own words. Make sure that you don't imitate the phrasing, that it's really changed. And one trick I like to do is maybe don't put the ideas quite in the same order so that you don't fall into the same rhythm of expression as the original. And like I said before, you still use an in-text citation. And just like with a quote, you explain why the paraphrased information is important. To do so, ask yourself, what am I trying to show or prove with this information? Why is it important to what I am saying? What is its significance? how does the information add to what I'm trying to prove in this paragraph? It gives you a kind of general example there, but what I want to do is kind of use the text for this week in order to practice all of these skills. And this also will be kind of an example of what I mean when I say you should have substantive engagement with your text. So imagine that you're writing a paragraph and the topic sentence is, dumpster diving is something that is stigmatized, but it teaches us all about letting go of material things and living simply. So that is our topic sentence. That's an argument that is supposedly part of a bigger essay that you would be making a larger argument about. When I say stigmatize, dumpster diving is something that people look down on sometimes. That's what stigmatize means. But it teaches us all about letting go of material things and living simply. So that's going to be my argument in this paragraph. So what I'm going to do here is to show you how you could use all three of these things in one paragraph: a summary, a paraphrase, and a quote. So you could start by introducing the essay that you're going to talk about with a little summary of it, because you are, supposed to imagine that your reader does not know what this essay is about, has never read it. So it's your job to give context, remember? So a summary is a great way to do that. And you can use some of the work you did on summarizing your article in the assignment for this week to do that. So you can write something like, we can see this in Lars Eigner's essay on dumpster diving. Remember, the title of an essay goes in quotation marks. This essay explains how to dumpster dive, and we might say how dumpster diving can help you learn about food waste, ethics, living simply, and caring for others. And maybe one more thing, like and appreciating life, right? So that's a very reductive summary of what the whole essay is about, right? So giving a little introduction of everything that we learn in this essay, right? And then we could go on to take a passage that's kind of longish and maybe paraphrase it to give more examples. The line I chose: many times in our travels, I have lost everything but the clothes I was wearing and Lisbeth. The things I find in dumpsters, the love letters and rag dolls of so many lives, remind me of this lesson. Now I hardly pick up a thing without envisioning the time I will cast it aside. This, I think, is a healthy state of mind. Almost everything I have now has already been cast out at least once, proving what I own is valueless to someone. So I've read it. Then I kind of want to think about it in my own words, just kind of brainstorm what it means. So he's saying that when he dumpster dives, he realizes that everything he finds is something that someone else has lost, and everything that he finds is also something that he will someday lose. And he thinks this is healthy because it allows him to let go, right? So those are the basic ideas in this passage. And you might kind of do it a little bit of different order just to kind of, get the, make sure you don't end up imitating his way of phrasing it. So he learns, okay, so it explains how, and I did the summary. He notes that, so that's again, we have to integrate the paraphrase. He has achieved mental health by remembering that everything he finds someone else has lost, and that he will also lose these things. So that's kind of a paraphrase of what he wrote there, right? And you see it is simplified, but it is still keeping all the points that he made. And then I didn't write down the page here, but since it's a paraphrase of a particular passage, just like a quote, you would put an in-text citation right after the paraphrase. And then you want to explain the meaning of the paraphrase and how it relates to your argument. By this, we see that it doesn't just get him things, but helps him be free of materialism and to live lightly on the planet, we could say maybe. Okay, so then we paraphrase that. And then you could also include a quote. So I chose, "Between us are the rat race millions who nightly scavenge the cable channels looking for they know not what." And so again, with a quote, you want to make sure you give the context. So I could say, dumpster diving helps free him of the worries that many middle-class people experience. He calls them and then we could just put the quote in, "the rat race millions who nightly scavenge the table channels, knowing for they know not what." And then the other one, you'd put the page number. And then, you could explain how that quote fits your point. We see here that even when people have money, they are lost and they don't appreciate the little things. But for Aigner, dumpster diving has allowed him to have inner peace, we could say, right? So that's an example of how you can do summary, paraphrase, quotation, and really explain each one of those well. So just a little lesson, and hopefully that gives you some insight into the reading for this week as well. So hope everything's going well, and talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.